Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, this is Hannah Berner from Giggly Squad. Have you ever put on a bra that makes you feel like a goddess? Prepare to be obsessed with the Dream Angels Wicked Bra from Victoria's Secret, the iconic brand behind the world's most comfortable bras. And I only wear the most comfortable bras. The bestseller features an innovative sling for perfect lift without padding, and the fit is chef's kiss. Awaken your inner goddess with new colors and super femme lace embroidery. Find out why this bra has thousands of 5-star reviews and counting. Shop it in stores and online at victoriassecret.com.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Brooke Brigham, I'm the attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham, I'm the therapist.
And today we are going to be talking about a documentary on Netflix called Daughters. And it won the Audience Award at the 2024 Sundance Film Festival. It's a great movie.
Yes. It's an emotional roller coaster.
It is. It's basically it chronicles this program that was implemented first in a prison in Richmond, Virginia. There's a woman, her name is Angela Patton. She's the CEO of Girls for a Change. And she works with young Black girls, helping them with whatever issues, they're going through, and self-esteem and just getting through life. And that's her passion, is working with those girls. And so she, like I said, she started this at a prison in Richmond. This documentary takes place at a prison in Washington, D.C. It's not a jail. It's the not a prison. It's a jail. Mm-hmm. So these are men who are incarcerated. They're waiting to be sentenced or waiting to go to trial. So what this Girls for a Change program does is they work with another program inside the jail. The guy inside the jail, his name is Chad Morris, and he's a fatherhood coach. And so he leads these groups of men who are fathers, and they talk about the challenges of being incarcerated and also being a father and trying to maintain a relationship with your children. And so they pair up these men that are in the program in DC, and they have to go through a 10-week program to prepare to have their daughters, who are part of the Girls for a Change group, come into the prison for a father-daughter dance. And it's called the Date with Dad program. So obviously the men that they choose are already, I'm sure, pre-screened.
Yeah.
For certain, are they going to be able to handle this program? That they're obviously people who are not getting in trouble. And they have to complete this 10-week program. And then on the outside, Angela Patton is working with the girls and their mothers to prepare them. Because this is a very emotional thing, because a lot of these girls have not seen their fathers in years, or haven't seen them since they were very young. And they're excited both sides are very excited, but they're also very scared.
Yeah. Everybody, dads and daughters, everyone's very scared.
And mothers too.
And mothers. Yes.
So this follows, there's a core group of 4 dads and daughters. They're chronicled, but there's probably about 20 or so men in this program. They couldn't follow everybody. But
in a weird way, this reminded me a bit of Oliver's movie Dancing Dads that we talked about. We had Oliver on the show as a friend of mine who made a documentary about these dads, and it is same exact themes about fathers being in their daughters' lives, about having something to connect with, and the way it was structured, and just sort of following certain dads and their own stories. But this one was, I don't know why I cried throughout it. It just sort of touches upon, and I don't know if it's a female thing or what, but it just kind of touches upon this idea of what does it mean to, the relationship between fathers and daughters, and the way our society kind of looks at them. We've talked about this before about how, with fathers, all of the Father's Day cards are all about like either golf or alcohol or like, thanks for giving me that money, Dad. That, like, a lot of that daddy-daughter relationship is so about like being a little bit of a princess, or, daddy takes care of things. And the fact that that daughters, that all women, and, they need a relationship with their father that can be really true and honest. Because it is very true. This is your this is sort of your first relationship. Now, obviously not everybody is, going to date and be in relationships with men per se, but that it is often the first romantic relationship for a lot of people, the first sort of modeling of what it's like to connect with someone of a different sex. I don't think I'm saying this very well, but you know what I'm saying. Sorry. I'm just trying not to make any blanket statements, because you know what I mean? Because I know that it's not for everyone's experience, but
I think that this father-daughter thing has been a little bit overblown, in the sense that I think for a child, their relationship with either parent, if it's lacking, is painful. And let's just be real. Most of the time, the relationship that is lacking is the father relationship, father-son. Because here's the thing, mothers don't leave usually, 99% of the time. Moms stay, they take care of the kids. A lot of fathers just leave. And they leave for different reasons, but they leave. Or they might physically be there, but they're not emotionally there. So I think it's kind of the more problematic of the relationships. But I don't know that the relationship has that much to do with like a male-female I don't know. Now,
so you don't see a connection between the two?
Between like your relationship with your father and your relationship with
your future romantic relationships, or your what does that mean? Who are you attracted to? Who do you pick? Because we do tend to pick people that feel comfortable to us for various reasons. And part of that is that, okay, and we have to figure out, even if you have this intact family, you can, that doesn't necessarily mean, that it's healthy. It just means that everyone's still there. Everyone's eating dinner together, but doesn't mean you're really talking to each other, right? So your relationships with your parents and what feels comfortable to you, what feels okay, does influence who you pick and who you choose to be with. And sometimes what you're exposed to and what you experience allows you to pick a healthy partner. And sometimes it maybe if you've been in this place where, our father, let's just say our he's a bit aloof. And, I think that for me, it took me a long time to like get out of picking aloof people, people that were kind of half in, half out.
Yeah.
Now, Dad's aloofness I didn't feel like it was a lack of love. I think it was just who he was. It's who he is as a person. But, when you're young, it's just what it felt comfortable, the aloofness. So that's what I kept picking. And my husband today is very different. And I like consciously made a choice to pick someone that wasn't aloof, So that's just been my experience. I think it's different. It's different for everybody, but I do think that there is, but what I was really talking about was just the fact that the father-daughter relationship has always been seen as this kind of princess daddy kind of thing, just the same way mothers and sons with like the overbearing mothers and the boy being a mama's boy, like that kind of stereotype being talked about and such. And it's like, I think it's very important for women to have a very, a different kind of relationship with their fathers, not this princess daddy buying me things, but like, Dad, this is what I need from you. And this, that kind of thing. So,
yeah, it's complicated. I guess
it's very complicated, as we saw in this book. We saw in this documentary. It's so complicated.
Yeah, and then of course here we have the complicating factor of men being incarcerated and not being able to see their daughters or any of their children, and there's generational patterns, as men go through the program and they start opening up, they start talking about, their relationship with their fathers. And it's just generational. I mean, they're stuck in a cycle. And so one of the most shocking things about this documentary is that they talk about how, the prison system has steadily been moving away from in-person visits.
Yes.
And especially touch visits where you can hug your kids. Sometimes you just have to talk through a glass wall or something. And now they're moving towards not even being live in person, that they're just doing these video visits, and the families have to pay for it.
Yeah, oh my God. No, if anyone listens to the show knows about our feelings about the justice system. And that what drives me crazy about that is, again, it's back to the fact that prisons are for profit. You do not care. Now you found another way to charge people. You found another way. And now you're putting a price tag on how much time people can spend. And we all know this. I'm sorry. It's just like the people that are running prisons are not psychologists. They're not empathetic people at all, because anybody who knows anything knows that, babies in orphanages that were touched more than other babies were far more resilient. That kids need to be touched, that people need to be touched, that people need that physical touch. They need that kind of relationship. So to just strip people away from all of that, of it, and just be like, okay, yeah, figure it out. I mean, the lack of, there's no rehabilitation. There's nothing.
And in fact, that they're not even treating them. I mean, forget rehabilitation. They're not even treating them like they're human.
Yes.
It's like because you committed a crime, you're denied the right to have relationships with your family. I mean, it just ruins relationships.
Well, the other thing too is, don't forget, this is the jail. These men have not been sentenced yet. Have they even had their trials yet? Have they had their,
Some of
do you know
them
what I mean?
Probably not. Yeah.
And so these men are technically innocent until proven guilty. So we are now already taking away that from them, and they have done, and technically in the eyes of the law, they've done nothing wrong. So, and one thing I do appreciate the way the documentary was made was that we did not spend any time on like what they did or what the
we don't even know what they're charged with.
We have no idea what's going on. And I appreciated that, because it was like, no, we're seeing this man in relationship to, this is Aubrey and this is her dad, Keith. And this is, this is Santana. And this is, who was her dad? Mark. Yeah. Versus seeing what they did per se. Yeah.
And, the interesting thing too is at the end, they tell us that 95% of the fathers in this program who've gone through this program, who have been released, have never returned to jail.
I mean, hello.
95%.
95%. There is nothing that has those kinds of stats.
No.
Nothing.
Because you see in the documentary, they really, they treat the inmates as humans.
Mm-hmm.
They treat them with dignity and respect. This whole thing is carried out with as much dignity and respect as they possibly can. There's obviously still confines of this is happening in a prison. And then they actually give these men a reason.
Mm-hmm.
They now have a reason to not want to go back, because they've been able to reestablish or strengthen their relationship with their daughter.
Well, the other thing too is that it's not just even the dance, it's part of the whole program and what the entire program does. Because I remember thinking like, oh, okay, there had to be exactly what you're thinking, which is, okay, then the people that they're picking, they had to probably meet certain criteria and they probably weren't going to be getting in trouble. And then when I saw it, it was like, oh, there's a 10-week program. I mean, like that must have been part of it too. You had to complete the program and complete it and do it. But what we learned from the program is that, and I don't know if it was just once a week or many times a week, what we saw, it was led by this fatherhood life coach, Chad, who's excellent. And what, it's like these men are talking about, oh, I'm able to talk about my feelings. I'm able to talk with other men and other fathers about my life and my experiences and how I feel about things. So they're already getting therapy. They're already, and now they're united in this. And so you can see already how just going, just having to do those meetings for 10 weeks, how much that is helping them. And they're getting help and they're being talked to. And then and then their daughters and the mothers are being helped. And both sides, I think what they're doing really well is there's no blame, there's no shame, there's no nothing. Like nobody is at fault. Nobody's done anything. We're not pointing fingers. They're incredibly empathetic of both sides. It's hard on both. It's hard for everybody in this. Moms, dads, kids, everybody.
Yeah. And everyone's feelings are being acknowledged.
Exactly.
And nobody's saying, oh, this is how you should feel. People are just allowed to feel how they feel, and they're allowed to say how they feel and have their feelings validated. It's really, God, how can we get this on national level?
This needs to be 95%, 95%. But and that's why, because prisons and jails and this system is for profit, people are not seeing that. Because I bet you anything, these people that are profiting off of prisons, they don't like 95%. That means people aren't returning.
Right.
That means people, they're not. Yeah. They don't, versus what you're really, versus what's real. And one of the things that I thought was interesting was that one of the dads, I think it was Mark, that he said, it's hard to stay connected because of these 15-minute phone calls. But the other thing, which was something that we see in the documentary, because all the girls that are profiled are different ages. Aubrey is 5 at the time, up till, what was her name? 15.
Right.
So obviously, for a 10-year-old, 13, 15-year-old, how they feel about all of this is very different than how a 5, 6-year-old feels about it. One of the things that Mark was saying was that he said, you have these 15-minute phone calls, but kids, they only really want to talk for 2 minutes and then they're gone. And that's part of it too, is because we're limiting it so much that people aren't able to stay in touch.
Yeah.
And that kids don't get, like, you have 15 minutes once a week. They just don't.
Yeah.
So what do you do with your 5-year-old?
Yeah. Well, let's go through the father-daughter pairs here. So yes, Aubrey is the youngest one. She's 5. And this girl is the smartest, most precocious little 5-year-old.
She's the star.
She knows all her times tables.
Yes.
Up to 11, I think. 10 for sure, because she's reciting all the times tables. And she's just darling. But so from the impression I got was, so her father is Keith. And my impression is he was living in the home with her and her mother until he was arrested. So they bonded, these two bonded. She's very bonded to him. And she says she thinks he's coming home in 7 years. So that must have been something that she heard from one of her parents. And she really clings to that, like the 7 years. So how old am I going to be, in 7 years? And so she just is very excited.
They were very close.
Yeah, they were very close, very bonded, obviously. So that's one pair. Then we have Santana is the girl, and Mark Murdoch. His name is Mark. Now, this Santana, she's interesting.
Yes.
She's like 10 going on 45.
Yeah, Santana's angry when she has the right to be. She's pissed.
Now, her mom was 14 when she was born. So her mom is like 24.
And now has 3 kids.
Yeah, has like a newborn and or like a toddler, toddler and an infant. And Santana is very parentified. She obviously is, the second parent. She's in the laundry at the laundromat.
And she's mad.
Yeah.
She's mad at dad. She's like, I'm done shedding tears because dad is doing bad stuff. It's affecting me. Dad's making, and she is not wrong that your father made a series of decisions that have now created it so that your life is more challenging and harder. And yeah, you have the right to be mad.
Yeah. So I guess she was born when he was in prison, and he didn't even get to touch her till she was 1 year old. So I'm not sure if he was kind of in and out, back and forth. I kind of get the feeling he's been in and out, and that adds to her frustration about, like, this is pissing me off now.
Yeah. Which is understandable. Yeah.
So let's see.
And then is it Jana? Jana and Frank. And this one, Jana also very angry. Again, at the time that we meet her, she's 11. And much like Santana, she's pissed at her dad. And I get the sense with the two of them that they haven't spent that much time.
No.
Like there's a real disconnect with the two of them. And I think Jana has been a little bit like putting the hand up of, this is all I can give you. Because I get the sense that it sounds like dad's been in and out.
Yeah, she hasn't seen him in 3 years.
So, and that's what she said. She says, why do you want to connect with me? Oh, this was the mom, Unita. She said that, yes. So it's a little bit like when Frank makes this request, it's a little bit like, when you were out, you weren't paying attention to her. You weren't you weren't paying attention to the family. You weren't paying attention to your kids. So you want to connect with her now.
Yeah,
why do you want to do this now? And, why didn't you do it when you were out and you had time for her? Why didn't you prioritize her? I think that's a good way of saying. And this is the part about, they kind of get into this whole thing with the moms of, they mention gatekeeping a bit. And, this is a part with the moms that's very challenging because, the moms are the ones doing everything. The moms are the ones there every single day. And, so they are feeling a little bit like now you want to do this. And I think that they probably feel conflicted as well, which is, do I let my daughter potentially, do this and potentially get her heart broken? Because I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And Angela, she talks to the moms about this. They have this mother-daughter circle at some point, and she talks about forgiveness, that because there has to be forgiveness if this is going to work moving forward. And, she says it's hard for someone to tell you that you're in the way when you're the one who's showing up every day doing all the work.
Yep.
And yeah, And they are. And so they're taking a big leap of faith. Like you said, their kids could be hurt by this. And they don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and this is what Chad said that I thought was, I'm sure someone else has said it before, but I thought it was very astute, which is he said, if you don't define yourself, the world will define you. And I think that at the core, he talks to them about self-love and learning to love unconditionally. And this is then when they start to talk about, like, we don't get an opportunity like this to talk to each other on this level. But I think that what he's saying is that this is an opportunity to redefine how you see yourself and then redefine how your child sees you and redefine this relationship. And it may feel difficult and scary to do that, but this is your chance to be proactive versus kind of like sitting back. Because I can imagine for some of these men, they kind of feel like, I can't insist on anything.
Yeah. One of the men was talking about how, like, they basically have been content with nothing for generations.
Yes.
They've normalized all of this. And he says, this is not normal. And, we need to talk about this.
Well, one of the things was that all of the men in the program are Black. So I was like, is this, I wasn't quite sure. Because is this the requirement? Is everyone, because Angela Patton, her organization is for young Black women.
Yeah.
So it's all of the fathers of these daughters.
Right.
And that's how they get. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Because it's all, the organization is
only okay. Got it.
Black girls. Yeah.
Yes.
So
that's what they were talking about, the condition of, the state. And, 200 years ago, we were in shackles and we're still in shackles. And that's a whole other huge conversation. But yeah,
there's one more, we have one more pair here. So we have, how do you say her name? Rosiah?
Yeah, Rosiah.
Her father is Alonzo.
Yes.
And she's 15. And she is not doing great. She's had thoughts of suicide. She complains about how, she has a lot to say to her dad. She wants a relationship with her dad, but she only gets 15 minutes on the phone. And it's been a year since they've been able to touch each other.
Yeah.
Because of these stupid visits. I mean, how can you even call that a visit? I mean,
yeah. Well, once upon a time, there were conjugal visits. Once upon a time, again, I keep coming back to this, which is you want, where is the rehabilitation? Where is the humanity? We act so superior all the time. We act like, that person committed a crime. They're awful. They're terrible. But treating that person not like a person makes you just as awful. And I'm sorry, it's a systemic issue. We're all condoning this. We're all saying that this is okay to do this to people. And it's not.
We all see that when people are lucky enough to be able to get into a program like this, there is an opportunity for rehabilitation, and it does work.
Yes.
It works.
95%.
Yeah, we used to do it. Other countries do it. They don't just lock up people forever and throw away the key.
Yeah, we're too punitive. We're so punitive with everything. We just want everything to feel fair all the time or something. Like, you took this from me, so I'm going to take all this stuff from you. It's like, why? We need to start figuring out, why did they take the stuff from you, and how do we change that? Anyway.
So so everyone's getting ready for the dance, being, prepared. The mothers and daughters are getting prepared. The fathers are getting prepared. They measure them to get fitted for clothes.
Yes, because that's the other part of it too, is they're going to be out of their the orange jumpsuits or whatever they were wearing, that they're going to be wearing suits. Can I ask a quick question though? Because I had this written down, which is a lot of the girls were scared to see their dads because they hadn't seen them. And they talked about having like a pre-meet, the daughters, but we never see that, right? They kind of talked around, like, do the daughters need to have a pre-meet?
Yeah, well,
it was the dads that were worried about that.
Yeah, the dads brought it up that they thought that maybe some of them might not feel comfortable leaving their moms because the moms come to the jail with them, but they're not in the same, they stay in another room like while the dance is going on, in case there's an issue or whatever. And some of the fathers were concerned that they might not want to leave their moms. And so they talked about, like doing something. But yeah, you're right. They never did reveal what happened, whether certain girls saw them ahead of time or, I don't know. But again, everyone was very mindful of, we can't just throw everyone together and think that there's not going to be any kind of awkwardness.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I was so impressed by how the program, I mean, we learned that this is like the 12th or 13th dance that they've done. And this was in 2019. So I'm sure a lot more have been held. But I was impressed by how much work how much pre-work they do and post-work that they do, bringing everyone together. And so maybe they just talked about it and they just kind of like, maybe it wasn't feasible to do it. So they just talked to the dads about like, what are you going to do? Like, let's say your daughter does get uncomfortable and asks for mom. So how do you handle that?
Yeah, I'm sure there was stuff that came up that we didn't see. But yeah, the fathers got to get haircuts and they all had suits and ties. It was funny because they're all pretty much, there was like one guy who knew how to tie a tie.
Oh, I know. That was so sweet.
He was teaching all the other men how to tie a tie. They were practicing that. And then, they talked about the power of touch.
And the importance of it.
When you're deprived of it, then you doubt your ability to survive in the world. I forget who said that, but that's pretty profound.
Yeah.
And then Angela was kind of giving the men a pep talk, and she was saying how important her father was to her. And she says, I'm 48 years old, and I've been able to count on my father since day one, and it means everything to me. So just trying to assure them that, you matter, and this is a lifetime role. It doesn't just stop.
Well, and I just lost my train of thought. Keep going.
So then they also show the girls getting ready, and they've got new dresses, and again, there's this real, fear, like feeling of nervousness, especially that when they all get into this kind of limousine bus type thing,
and like a Sprinter van or something, like Housewives.
Yeah, and you can tell they're nervous. Everyone's nervous.
Yeah,
and this part, God, this was terrible. The girls have to go through full security.
Yes,
they make them take their shoes off, and they're using the wand. And it's like, God, was this really necessary? Did we have to do?
I had a feeling. I was like, of course they're going to do that. Of course. I mean, liability wise, I would think they just have to. I mean, listen, they didn't strip search them. I mean, it could be worse. But I mean, but I think that's the other part of it too. And I'm glad the filmmakers kept it in, because that's the reality of it. That they weren't driving up to some hotel or some event space, that this is where they were driving up to. But this was, so I had been tearing up throughout it. Now, before the dance starts, all the dads are in these chairs lined up in this long hallway, and they're all wearing their suits and they're all waiting. And then all of a sudden you start seeing the girls come into this hallway, and Aubrey's first, some of the younger girls, Aubrey and this other girl who looks about the same age, they come in and they're starting to come in and kind of looking at the faces and recognizing, and then they start jumping into their dad's arms. This is where I was fully bawling.
Yeah.
Bawling. Tears coming down my face, snot, everything. I was a mess by this point. Because I think the other part of it too is there was all this anticipation and buildup of this event. And for me and them,
Yeah.
especially them. Psych Legal Pop will be back after these messages.
Hi, this is Hannah Berner from Giggly Squad. Have you ever put on a bra that makes you feel like a goddess? Prepare to be obsessed with the Dream Angels Wicked Bra from Victoria's Secret, the iconic brand behind the world's most comfortable bras. And I only wear the most comfortable bras. The bestseller features an innovative sling for perfect lift without padding, and the fit is chef's kiss. Awaken your inner goddess with new colors and super femme lace embroidery. Find out why this bra has thousands of 5-star reviews and counting. Shop it in stores and online at victoriasecret.com.
Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
And it was almost this kind of like, oh, we're reunited. But that same, but it is that same feeling of knowing that this was temporary.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that Chad tells everybody very early on, which is this is going to be an emotional roller coaster that you're going to feel this. There's going to be all this anticipation and excitement. And then there's going to be the realization of like the clock is starting midnight.
Yeah, it's ticking.
And that you're going to have to then take off the suit and go back into your cell.
Yeah.
But there was such excitement in the beginning and all of that. So,
yeah.
Again, I thought when I heard dad-daughter dance, I just assumed that it would just be tons of dancing, like everyone out dancing. But again, they've done this many times, so they know what works. It was like people, they were in, looks like they were at tables and there was food and there were activities and like a photo booth kind of a thing. And
a runway. They had a runway where they posed for pictures. I mean, it's a 6-hour event. You can't dance for 6 hours.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, they had a bunch of activities and also just to give them something to do.
Yeah.
It's awkward. There were some real awkward silences, especially with Jayana and her dad, because they were the most kind of, not really close to each other. So there's a lot of awkward silences I felt with them.
Yeah.
Oh, and Santana, the Miss 10 going on 45, she was kind of ripping into dad. She was giving him a lecture.
Yes. She was pissed. She was like, I'm going to share my feelings now.
She was lecturing him about, all this stuff and he's making her life harder and blah, blah. But he was receptive. He was like, I know. Yeah, I'm going to do better. And so he was receiving that. And
well, I was like, ooh, even when she even got into the whole thing about maybe the dynamic between her parents and like when you call mom and you say this and this, and then she does this and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, ooh, you're really digging in, there. But yeah, I mean, you have to give Mark credit. He took it all in. He listened to it and he was like, yeah, I know why you're mad. But this whole thing with Aubrey or Bree and Keith at that dance, I mean, she's a lot. She's so cute.
Not like nonstop.
She talks nonstop. She's got so much to say. Obviously, they're very, very close. And she just, she wanted to do everything and be everywhere. And that was really heartbreaking to see sort of what happened with that. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. Cause we'll talk about, they go like, I think 1 year later and then 3 months later.
And I think that was because of COVID. I think that they didn't I don't know, this is just my theory, but I think they obviously made the movie in 2019 thinking, okay, in 2020 we'll come back a year later. And I think that COVID kind of was like, oh, okay, now let's see what they're doing now because we're finally putting it out.
Yeah, probably.
That's just my thoughts.
Got delayed. So yeah, there was some dancing, and even some of the correctional officers who were getting in on it. But yeah, they made it so that it wasn't. I mean, there were correctional officers there, but they were kind of low key and just kind of hung back. And, it didn't feel like this was a dangerous situation or a dangerous place. Or it took place in this room. It's kind of like an auditorium, like a high school.
Well, yeah,
auditorium.
she asked, who was that? Oh, it was, is it Gianna? How do you?
Jayana.
I think she was the one that was sort of like, well, what is this place? And her dad said, oh, this is where we play basketball. And she's like, oh, you play basketball here? I mean, I think she, like, is this what you're doing with your time? But yeah, I guess it must have been like their gym or something like that. But yeah, I didn't even notice the correction officers until I saw one wandering by. And I think it's almost like they were like parents at a school dance. Like just wandering around, making sure no one's spiking the punch kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, it does come down to the having to say goodbye.
And again, that was the second time I started bawling.
Very emotional. And little Aubrey is like, she's like, this is see you later, not goodbye. And she says, I'm going to always be here for you. I mean, she's comforting him.
Yeah.
And he's kind of trying to keep it together.
Yeah.
Keith, right? Yeah. He's really trying to keep it together. And, there's a lot of tears with, was it Alonzo and,
Rosiah, but also we learned that Alonzo considers his niece, who I guess he's been raising since she was a baby, a daughter as well.
Yeah, she came too.
So she came too, and they both were dancing. They both were there for Alonzo.
Yeah. That was really emotional. They were all breaking down. But yeah, it was, ugh. And then the worst part was like watching, and the men, they're all just kind of dumbstruck. You know, that they're all just kind of standing there after all the girls left, and they're still in their suits. And one of the men said, my daughter wasn't able to be here, didn't make it. I don't know why, maybe at the last minute didn't want to come. And he said, but I was so happy to be here and just witness this and thank you. And I mean, it's like, God, that was really emotional. And then, they had, they're trying to be strong and keep it together. And they literally like get back into their prison clothes, take off their suits, get back in their orange jumpsuits, and then they all kind of file out and leave.
Yeah.
Go back to their cells.
And I bet you anything they had to be strip searched. I bet you anything they were strip searched after that. I think I've talked about this documentary before, but it was it was on Netflix. I cannot remember the name of it. I think it was like Prison to College. It's about this college program that's inside one of the prisons. I think it's Bard College, which is in upstate New York. I had a friend who went there, and small liberal arts college. And that there are, there's they profiled a group of men who were getting their college degrees. And at one of the part of the program is you can be part of the debate club. And the prison group debated Harvard, their debate team.
Oh, yeah, this sounds familiar.
And it got picked up by a lot of local news. And the men were talking about that, like of the feeling of what that was like to walk in and debate, and they won and they were thrilled. And he said, but when it was over, it was like, go back into your clothes, strip searched, and it's like, one of the men was saying, he's like, yeah, you're right back where you are. Like you have these high moments of feeling like a human, and then you're back to this place. But that is such an interesting documentary.
Yeah, watch that. But yeah, and here's the thing in our society. Yeah, we're so black and white. We don't make distinctions between prisoners, like we all are just so focused on the people who, do these heinous acts. And of course, those people, some people cannot be rehabilitated. Some people should not be let out. But there's a whole other group of people who can be rehabilitated and should be let out and are not a danger. And it's just, we become so like every governor does not want to be the one who, lets somebody out and then they go and they commit another terrible crime or something,
Yeah.
I don't know why we can't take chances. I mean, if someone has the wherewithal to go through a program like that and the debate thing, or to go through this program or whatever, and complete it successfully, you don't think they have the wherewithal to go out into the world? And I mean, depending on their crime, and their mental state, but obviously none of these people are psychotic or a danger, I mean.
Well, yeah. And we hear the stories of their lives. Their stories were stories of what you said, generational trauma. Their fathers were incarcerated. Their mothers were incarcerated. There is a big difference between someone who is, a serial killer, or someone who is a sadist, and someone who commits criminal acts as a survival. If that is the one job in your entire area. And what I'm talking about is, listen, there are kids that just like Santana at 10, 11, 12, who have to figure out a way to make money for their family because there is no one else that can do it. And I'm sorry, a 12-year-old, the only way he's going to be able, or she is going to be able to support her family is through doing something illegal. And so now you're starting, and now you're in the system, and now you're right. I see people, when you are doing things out of desperation and out of violence is your survival, this is part of it. That is very different than someone who is actively choosing it.
Right. And also substance abuse is behind, probably 50% or more of all of this. People who are addicted to drugs and will do whatever they have to do to get the drugs. And, we have such harsh sentences for things, especially with the drug related stuff. Some of the stuff, you can assault someone and go to prison for less time than, this selling drugs. But anyway,
so ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. So, anyway, so then the next session, they're kind of unpacking all of this with,
Chad.
And it's just really, everyone's feeling really, I don't know if I want to say sad, because I think that obviously this provided a lot of inspiration for them. But, it's hard to come down from something like that.
Yeah. Because I could imagine since it is jail and they're waiting, being either they've been convicted or they're waiting for they're waiting to be convicted or their trials, then, for them, they need, this is a tremendous amount of hope, a tremendous amount of there's something out there for me. And one of the men said, he said, you always think about how you don't want to come back to prison, how you don't want to be back here. He said, but that day he felt like he knew he could not come back here. And knowing, where, about seeing his daughter's face, all of those things, that's what gave him that. And, I mean, 95%, that's very, very real, very real. And so then we fast forward a year later where we see Aubrey, and she's now 6 years old, and it's her birthday. And this is really, Keith received his final sentence, 10 years.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And she's still saying, she starts out the scene by saying 7 years. She's still stuck on this 7 years, because she talks about how the earth goes around the sun, and that's a year. And she talked about years. So she's still holding on to this 7 years, but then we see that he in fact was sentenced to 10 years.
Yeah. And then the other person that we see after a year is Frank and Jayana. And he gets out on parole and he's out in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, he's showing us these jeans he bought her and this jacket and this, and, he's trying to figure out how to be a dad. He's trying to figure out, like, do I buy her things? Do I do this? Do I do that? She's still pissed. She's still mad. And she basically is like, he has to earn my trust.
She asked him, she's like, do you have a job yet? Her first question.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too, is like, much like for these girls, it's like the bad boyfriend almost, it's a little bit like, do I trust this person? Do I not trust this person? Do I and I think she's kind of she's protecting herself. She's a little bit like, let me see what happens here.
Yeah.
Right?
She asks him, are you changing? And then, she talks about earning trust back.
And Frank, I want to say that was not the best answer. I'm changing all the time. I'm changing this. It's like,
he's like, Frank, I change every day.
Frank, that's not what she was asking. And I think, that's not what she was asking. But I think that what we're seeing a little bit of, even, Frank participated in this program and he wants to change things. But I think what we're seeing here too is that, Frank doesn't know how to relate to her or be a dad or how to tell her, he doesn't know that, oh God, I need to be vulnerable with her right now. Like, she's reaching out to me and I need to be vulnerable. Like, he's trying to figure this stuff out too. And that's why having, people, they need fatherhood and all of this kind of these services constantly, all the time to help them. Because everybody needs it. Trust me. So then we see, those were the only two we met after a year, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So then now we have 3 years after the dance and we see Ray's, she's now 18 and she's graduating from high school. And we hear her very clearly saying that this motivated her. Like, it motivated her to live, which is huge, but motivated her knowing that her father was there, knowing that he was proud, knowing that it motivated her to stay alive and graduate high school and feel really, really good about that, which I think is exactly, it's just this motivation on both sides. The men to be motivated to not do this and for the girls to be motivated to create, something to get their fathers through so that they will come home.
Yeah.
So now this I thought was great, which is we see Santana. She's now 13 and it's her birthday. And Mark, her dad's been out of prison. They don't say how long, but apparently Mark, he said that he's never stayed out of prison for longer than 6 months before. He said I'd get out and something would happen and less than 6 months later, I'm back. He's been out for 4 years.
Wow.
There we go. Right there. I mean, that's huge.
But this is only 3 years after the dance.
I think he says I've been out for close to 4 years. This is what I wrote down, but I think that
maybe it was more than, maybe it was like 4 or 5 years. I don't know.
Afterwards or where the time frame is. Yeah. I mean, the time frame is a little wonky, but I think that, you're right. It was only 3 years after that. I don't know where I got 4 years. Maybe I made that up in my mind, but let's just say for someone who could not last longer than 6 months, even if it was 2 or 3 years, that's still huge. It's still a big accomplishment. And so we see them and Santana seems a lot happier.
Yeah.
I mean, she's still 13. She's still, she's a 13-year-old girl, but she seems a lot happier. We see mom and it looks like they had another baby. So now there's a 4th kid and they're out to dinner and, things like it's good.
Yeah. I just keep thinking about how young these people are because, the mom, Diamond, again, she was 14 when,
she's 27 now.
27 with 4 kids.
That's, oh my gosh.
And he's only a couple of years older than her.
He's 29. Because he said he was 16 when they had.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is the other part of it too, is that they are both so young and think about who you were at 27 or 29.
Yeah.
And then translating that to 4 kids, it's
well, and not just it's not that he's just 29. It's that he's spent most of his life, his adult life, in jail, or prison. So he's not like a normal 29-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this I think is really heartbreaking. Aubrey, she hasn't seen her father since the dance, but we see that she just got approval for a visit. So she's now 8 years old. And we see her being woken up by her mom and going down to where he's being held. And we learned from Keith, that he thought it would be a better visit. It's basically the visit is through plexiglass, through some video screen. He couldn't hear her. He couldn't see, it just wasn't, he thought it would be better because he said, I wanted to touch her so that they could reset. Because it has been 3 years. And
she's very different now.
Yes.
You can tell, like, that sparkle that she had is kind of gone.
Yeah.
And it's really sad. And I guess she asked to leave the visit early, and she's just kind of over it. Because then he calls her, they get in the car to drive home, and he calls on the cell phone, and he's trying to talk to her, and she's just over it. She's like, yes, no, okay, yeah, okay, bye. And I think she realizes, now it's like, okay, he's going to be gone for, he got 10 years, so he's going to be gone for several more years. I don't know if he's eligible for parole, but, he might be gone for another 8 years. By then, she's going to be 16.
Yeah.
I mean, and she can't really see him, she can't. It seemed like it was probably a long drive from where they live to where he is. And they only get a certain amount of visits, a month or whatever. It's not like you can just go and visit anytime you want.
Yeah.
There's limits, severe limits. And then you get there and you're talking through plexiglass on a telephone or something, or over a video screen or something.
Yeah.
It's just like it's impossible. It's impossible to maintain a relationship like that.
Well,
with a kid who's constantly changing and becoming a different person all the time. How are you supposed to keep up with that?
Well, yeah. And that's the other one too, which is, how do you keep up with that? And also, if you're living with someone, you get to, a bad mood isn't the only thing that you get. You get everything. But what's so hard is there's so much pressure for these visits because there's so much to get there. And then you get there and you can't blame an 8-year-old for kind of feeling like, what's going on? What am I doing here? And feeling a little bit like, this isn't anything. And, this is my Saturday, or this is, just kind of, because they're kids, they're not thinking this is the one chance I have to visit with my father. And this is a critical moment for us to reconnect. They're kids. And so she's not thinking about the impact of this visit the way he is.
Yeah.
She just wants to get home.
Yeah.
And it is hard, but apparently it is really sad. I guess it looked like he had been moved 3 times, they transferred between prisons across states. Keith has been across states. And so Aubrey's only seen him this visit and one other since the dance. And apparently he's in a prison right now where there's no visits. You get 10-minute phone calls.
How is that even constitutional?
Yeah. Yes. But this is the thing. We just feel like, well, you committed a crime. There you go. You're out. You're done. I mean, and back to what you were talking about earlier about how black and white we are. It's back to that same thing of elections and how people are elected. It's just like even though it is quite clear that executions do not deter crime, knowing that you could be executed does not deter crimes. And then we see this other side of it where having this dance meant that 95% of the people were gone. But you can't, that's the problem. Like, you can't run on that. That's too nuanced. It's too something. And that's the problem. The problem is that these governors, they just feel all this pressure to just, because it's so simple for people, right? Like, oh, tough on crime means you execute, executions and tough on crime. And that's the only way, versus it always has to be tough on crime. But what about solving crime? Like fixing it. And it's never that, because that is too nuanced.
Yeah.
And so no one ever runs on it.
Right. Yeah. And in California, we've had, recently, this has been a big deal in the state where, the district attorney in our county, and where I live, has been recalled because she was, charging things, theft and whatever, or not charging things under a certain amount. Basically, she was trying to focus on, bigger problems.
Yeah.
And not spending the resources of the office prosecuting these petty theft crimes. She got recalled. The mayors of Los Angeles.
Well, the guy George Gaston.
The DA in Los Angeles.
And that was the big complaint with him. The big complaint with him was that he was too lenient, right? That was the issue. And it was even surprising hearing people say, there's lawlessness in LA. It's crazy, and this, it's like, yeah, he's trying to figure out how to do this. I mean,
he got
voted out. So and you can't survive.
And the guy who ran against Karen Bass for LA mayor, Rick Caruso, he lost, but now he's having this resurgence because now everyone's blaming Karen Bass for LA burning down. So this, it goes back and forth. And then there was another one. The tough, it always comes back to the tough on crime. Even when people try to get a little more, okay, let's focus on this and it always comes back because all it takes is just one thing to happen.
Yeah.
Just one unfortunate incident. And it's like, well, forget that. We can't do that. We have to go back to tough on crime. But anyway.
Yeah. No.
Rant over.
So many feelings about this, the legal system. So
we get some more updates.
Yes.
At the end.
So I'm sorry, I keep butchering her name. Razia. Razia has not had a touch visit with her father, and Alonzo was sentenced to 30 years.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
What did he do?
Oh no, Alonzo, this is not good.
She's never gonna see him again, probably. Now he's gonna get shipped out to some faraway place, probably where she can't see him.
Yeah.
Oof.
But Frank and Gianna are building a relationship. I guess Gianna's mom's having some health issues, but they're rebuilding things. Mark seems to be the most successful one.
Yeah.
Like he's still at home and he keeps in touch with Chad. So he seems to be the one that's of the four.
Yeah.
Seems to be in the best place. And I do think that some of this too, since they were all in jail and they were either awaiting a sentence, or it sounds like maybe Frank's issue was less than a year, so he got out, or right? Because if you're sentenced to something less than a year, you just stay in jail.
Yeah, you just stay in the county or city.
So it's possible that that's what was going on with
Mark
with Mark as well,
and Frank.
And so this is the other part of it too, is that it's almost like you need to do this in a timely fashion. It's almost like this is what they should, if you're getting out in a year, this is what people need to start doing. Like when you're going to get out soon, this is the preparation people need for getting out. And it sounds like when you have that and the dance is so close, it seems to have the best outcome.
Yeah. But by the same token, if you're Alonzo and you're going to be in prison for maybe up to 30 years, you should still get to see your kids.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm not saying you shouldn't.
They should still have to, you should be able to touch your kids, hug your kids. I mean, there are certain constitutional rights as being a parent. You know, you do have rights. So
yeah, the Date with Dad program's been around for 12 years. And as we said, 95% of the fathers who participate never returned to jail. That is
the ones who got out.
The one who's got, that is a huge, huge statistic.
Yeah, because most states, the recidivism, if you have a 50% recidivism rate, that's good.
Yeah.
That's considered success.
So 95% is no joke.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's anything. There are birth controls. Birth control is not 95%. Like, there's so many things out there that are like that people are readily taking.
Yeah. Where do you get 95% on anything?
Yeah. I mean, that's unreal. I did notice that Jessica Seinfeld was one of the executive producers. Yeah. So she may be active in this. She might be, someone who gives money to this group, or I don't know how she got involved in all that, but I saw that. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a really fascinating documentary.
Yeah. I'm really glad I watched it. And when I first saw the trailer for this, I was like, oh God, I can't watch that. I just thought I was crying just watching the trailer. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, then something came over me. I'm like, I'm going to watch this. I'm going to tough it out. I'm going to watch this. And I was just like, wow, it's just really, really good.
So yeah, we need more programs like this. We need more of this. We just need more of this. And I hate, and what makes me crazy is I just feel like we keep moving farther and farther and farther away from it. Like,
yeah. Well, and especially when, the U.S. has the highest per capita incarceration rate in the world, including, like communist China.
Yeah.
So a tremendous number, millions and millions of Americans are affected by this in some way, whether they're incarcerated or you're the family member of someone who's incarcerated. This affects a lot of Americans, and it affects our economy. It affects everything. I mean, if nothing, look at this from an economic point of view.
Yes.
And realize this is not good for our country. This is not sustainable. It's not sustainable to just keep locking people up and then just treating them like they're not human.
Yes.
So yeah, any of you if you subscribe and you listen regularly, you know how we feel about this. We pretty much rant about it any chance we can get. So hope you enjoyed.
Yes. Us ranting about the legal system and the justice system. Thanks for listening. And if you'd like to support our podcast, we have a Patreon if you want more content like this, where we rant even more.
Yeah, we love that. We can rant away over there all day. So check us out at patreon.com. Also, if you like the podcast, we'd appreciate it if you would subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. And we are on all the social medias, TikTok, while it's still around, Facebook, Instagram, and now on Blue Sky.
Yes, go check us out on Blue Sky.
Neither one of us have been on it.
No, I've been on Blue Sky. I have. I don't understand how it works. But I never quite understood Twitter. Like the retweeting and what's happening here and what's going on, like those threads. I've never been able to follow any of that.
Well, if you understand all that, go there.
Go check us out there.
Google Pop.
All right.
So, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, this is Hannah Berner from Giggly Squad. Have you ever put on a bra that makes you feel like a goddess? Prepare to be obsessed with the Dream Angels Wicked Bra from Victoria's Secret, the iconic brand behind the world's most comfortable bras. And I only wear the most comfortable bras. The bestseller features an innovative sling for perfect lift without padding, and the fit is chef's kiss. Awaken your inner goddess with new colors and super femme lace embroidery. Find out why this bra has thousands of 5-star reviews and counting. Shop it in stores and online at victoriasecret.com.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Stephen here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Stephen will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fanfellows wherever you get your podcasts.
That new thing? Yeah, we've got it. The Drop by GNC, bringing you all the newness that matters, handpicked by the pros who actually know what's up and what's proven to work. We keep you on top of the trends and dialed into what's next. Whether you're crushing it at the gym, leveling up your game, or thriving every day, The Drop by GNC is where the latest solutions in health and wellness land first. Non-stop innovation and fresh finds daily. Explore what's new and what's next on The Drop by GNC.